Good day. I want to introduce to you to Louis Riel. Louis Riel, Métis leader, founder of Manitoba, central figure in the Red River and Northwest resistances, born October the 22nd, 1844 in Saint Boniface, Red River settlement, died November the 16th, 1885 in Regina, Saskatchewan. Riel led two popular Métis governments, was central in bringing Manitoba into Confederation, and was executed for high treason for his role in the 1885 resistance to Canadian encroachment on Métis lands. Riel was initially dismissed as a rebel by Canadian historians, although many now realize with Riel as a Métis leader who fought to protect his people from the Canadian government. Early life. Riel was born in 1844 in Saint Boniface in the Red River settlement. His father, Louis Riel Sr., a businessman and political leader in the Métis community, organized a large Métis resistance to the Hudson Bay Company, HBC, fur trading monopoly, at the trial of Pierre-Guillaume Sayer in 1849. Riel's political legacy likely influenced his son, who left Red River at a young age to study in Quebec. From the beginning of his formal education, Riel emerged as a standout student. At 18, the Catholic clergy in the Red River parish of Saint Boniface identified him as a strong candidate for the priesthood, and he was given a scholarship to study at a Sulpician school in Montreal, or Montreal, depending. Riel excelled at this junior seminary, where he soon neared the top of his class. He also acquired a passion for poetry, which he nurtured for the rest of his life. While studying for the priesthood, Riel met a young French-Canadian woman, Marie-Julie Gernon, to whom he quietly became engaged. However, in the racially charged atmosphere of the day, Gernon's parents refused to allow her to marry a Métis man, and the engagement was broken off. Riel left the seminary and moved back to Red River. Riel at Red River. In March 1869, the HBC agreed to sell Roper's Land and the Northwestern Territory to the Dominion of Canada. Anticipating the transfer of these lands, the federal government appointed William Macdonald as lieutenant governor of the new territory and sent surveying crews to Red River that August to access and restake the lands. Concerned that an influx of Anglo-Protestant immigrants from Ontario would follow, the Métis organized the Métis National Committee in order to protect the social, cultural, and political status of the Métis in Red River and the Northwestern more generally. As an articulate young man with an Eastern education, Riel was elected as its secretary and was later elected president. With Riel at its head, the committee halted the Canadian land surveys on October 11, 1869. Less than 1 month later, the committee established a roadblock to prevent William Macdonald from entering the Red River settlement on November the 2nd. That same day, the committee seized Rupert Fort Garry from the HBC and, with little resistance from HBC officials, took steps to establish itself under Riel's leadership as the government of the Red River settlement. The committee invited both the English and French-speaking people of Red River to send delegates to Upper Fort Garry to discuss the terms on which they would allow Macdonald, and by extension Canadian authority, into the Northwest. The Métis National Committee. The Métis National Committee was consolidated as a provisional government in early December of 1869. With Riel at its helm, it issued a declaration of the people of Rupert's Land and Northwest, which rejected Canada's authority to govern the Northwest and proposed a negotiated settlement between Canada and the new provisional government. In response to Macdonald's rejection from Red River, the Canadian government sent 3 special commissioners to the settlement: Reverend Jean-Baptiste Thibault, Colonel Charles de Salaberry, and Donald A. Smith, chief representative of the HBC in Canada. Smith persuaded Riel to summon a general meeting at which Riel and other local leaders proposed a convention of 40 representatives of the settlement, equally divided between English and French speakers, to discuss the possibility of union with Canada. At the first meeting, held 26 January 1870, the delegates decided to draw up an entirely new list of rights, which they considered the conditions necessary for the people of the Northwest to enter Confederation. In March 1870, this convention was transformed into the Provisional Government of Assiniboia, which contained 3 branches of government: an elected legislature, an executive responsible to the legislature, and a fledgling judicial branch. The provisional government appointed and sent 3 delegates to Ottawa, whose official task was to negotiate with Georges-Étienne Cartier the entry of Assiniboia, Red River, and the surrounding area into Confederation. Meanwhile, a small force of Canadians gathered at Portage-la-Prairie, hoping to enlist support in the Scottish parishes of Red River and disband the provisional government. The appearance of armed Canadians unarmed, the Métis, or Métis, depending, who promptly rounded them up and imprisoned them at Upper Fort Garry. The Métis convened a court-martial at which Riel's associate, Ambroise Didim Lépine, sentenced a young Orangeman, Thomas Scott, to death by firing squad. Scott was executed on March 4, 1870. While this event was downplayed in both the provisional government of Assiniboia's deliberations and by the Canadian leadership negotiating with the provisional government representatives in Ottawa, the execution did radicalize Protestant Ontario. The execution did rationalize Protestant Ontario, who from this point onward sought retribution from Riel for Scott's death. Despite opposition from the Orange Lodge of Ontario, of which Thomas Scott had been a member, the provisional government's delegates obtained an agreement with the Canadian government. The agreement was embodied in the Manitoba Act, which received royal assent on May 12, 1870, when the province of Manitoba entered Confederation. Central to this agreement, the federal government agreed to reserve 1.4 million acres, or 560 hectares, for the children of Métis residents of Manitoba and ensured that the province would be officially bilingual. To reassure Ontario that and support the administration of the new Lieutenant Governor A.G. Archibald, the federal government sent a military force to Red River under Colonel Garnet Wolseley in the summer of 1870. Through the Red River expedition was supposed to be an errand of peace. According to Archibald, the provisional government had not consented to its arrival, and it was not part of the agreement made by the delegation to Ottawa. Riel had reason to fear its arrival. The provisional government even considered resisting it. However, when it became obvious that the expedition was out to lynch Riel, he fled to the United States. On May 3rd, 1871, he returned quietly to his home in Saint Vital, Red River, although he often stayed in hiding. When the province was threatened in the autumn of 1871 by a Fenian raid from the United States, Riel offered to organize a force of Métis cavalry to demonstrate Métis' commitment to their agreement with Canada. In the intervening years, Quebec to Montana. In Ontario, Riel was widely denounced as Thomas Scott's murderer, and a reward of $5,000 murder between commas, and a reward of $5,000 was offered for his arrest. In Quebec, he was regarded as a hero, a defender of the Roman Catholic faith and French culture in Manitoba. Anxious to avoid a political confrontation with the two principal provinces of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald tried to persuade Riel to remain in voluntary exile in the United States, even providing cash payout to Riel, who needed the money to support his family. However, his exile lasted only 4 months, and Riel was encouraged by his friends and his widespread popularity in French Manitoba to enter federal politics. He was elected in the federal riding of Provencher by by-election in October 1873. Riel was re-elected in the February 1874 general election, at which point he traveled to Ottawa and signed the members' register at the House of Commons. But before taking his seat, he was expelled from the House on a motion introduced by the Ontario Orange leader Mackenzie Bowell. Although he re-elected in a constituency by election in Provencher in October of 1874, Riel delayed in taking his seat and was later expelled from the House. On February 12, 1875, the federal government adopted a motion granting amnesty to Riel that was conditional to 5 years of banishment from the Her Majesty dominions between commas. The question of whether or not Riel had broken either British or Canadian law on his part in the Red River resistance was never determined in court.